Well then, let's have a look at Derby, because Derby is an interesting contest, not just because we have Labour and Tories fighting out in some parts of Derby, but Reform UK are also fielding a full slate of candidates in Derby as well. So Georgia Roberts is there for us. Georgia, bring us up to date. What do things look like?
Yeah, so here in Derby, I'm at Derby Arena, and Derby just one of two councils up for election in the East Midlands. And you know, it's actually all up for grabs here, Hugh. There's only a third of seats up in Derby, so we're a bit limited in those big trends that we can spot, but it's still a very useful indicator here. And just to remind viewers what we're looking at in terms of the current situation, this is a minority-led council led by the Conservatives. Labour are the second biggest party here. But as you say, we also have the added nuance of Reform UK, perhaps having the biggest presence here of any council in England. 6 councillors for Reform UK. There were UKIP last time they were contested here in 2018. 2 seats up for grabs this time in traditional Labour areas. And it really is Labour, Hugh, who are going to be hoping to make some serious gains tonight. Just what are the parties hoping for here? The Conservatives, they're hoping for a pretty steady ship, perhaps not some monumental gains. But, you know, there's some very tight races going on as well. We have Darley here. Now that is 1 vote in it last time between the Conservatives and Labour, and Darley is in the parliamentary seat of Derby North. That is a key marginal here, held currently by Conservative MP Amanda Soloway. It's currently a Conservative ward. As I said, 1 vote in it last time, and just speaking to Labour sources here on the ground, they say they're feeling pretty relaxed about taking it back. So that's perhaps one test that Labour can pass here. But just to add, Hugh, that when it comes to this talk about perhaps 2018, when these seats were last contested, of there being a high watermark of results for Labour at that point elsewhere, a good showing for them last time, that wasn't the case here in Derby. In 2018, Labour lost control of Derby City Council, and they are actually in a position where since then they've made consistent erosions in their support here. So tonight there's a lot of traditional red votes, if you like, up for grabs in places like where Reform have been strong up until now. Labour hoping to retake some of their traditional areas that Reform have been strong in now. So Labour really hoping that this tonight will set them on a good trajectory, so clawing back some support that they have lost here. And they lost it because of a myriad of local issues. For one, a very controversial Labour leader that led Derby City Council. But they want to see a beginning of a comeback tonight. And it really is going to be a key test, because we are talking about a very marginal, divided Derby. You have actually, in terms of the parliamentary situation, Dame Margaret Beckett, veteran Labour MP in Derby South, and then you have, as I mentioned, Conservative MP Amanda Soloway in Derby North. Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, was here last week, and she told Labour members on a key campaign stop that there is no route to number 10 without Labour winning in places like Derby and beginning to make a good showing again. Can they do it? We'll see what happens. And it is going to be a very nervous night for Labour, but the Conservatives, as I say, they lead the City Council at the moment. They are the minority leaders on the council. For them, they're feeling pretty relaxed on the doorstep. People in their core wards, core Conservative vote, seems to have been holding up pretty well. They actually are feeling quite good as well, just to mention, in places like Amber Valley. That's the one other council in the East Midlands that is up for election tonight. Now, Amber Valley, of course, we have the added factor of the Conservative MP Nigel Mills, who was among the first Conservative MPs to call for the Prime Minister to resign after those fixed penalty notices. Conservatives on the ground in Amber Valley actually feel that perhaps that may have helped them in terms of perhaps getting a pretty tricky reception on the doorstep when it comes to going on in Westminster, and how that might affect their position in Amber Valley. So a relaxed, perhaps night, Conservative mood in Amber Valley, where they control the council currently. They have overall control. Labour would have to actually win every ward up for grabs tonight in Amber Valley, as well as standing still in their current position to gain complete control there. So all to play for, both in Amber Valley in a sense, and Derby as well.
Georgia, thank you very much. Georgia Roberts there with the look at the situation in Derby and indeed in other parts of the East Midlands there, mentioning Amber Valley. And Laura, you know, the whole concept of Labour's route back to power, any route that would take Labour back to power, having to go through Derby, is clear. And yet, you know, Georgia was there saying Labour are quite nervous.
Well, that's right. And you have to look at marginal seats like that, the kind of seats where people change their minds, and those change of heart change who gets the keys to number 10. And actually, it's fascinating to drill down into those seats and even into those wards like that, rather than what can be actually quite a risky game, which is to talk, as people often do, about the north or the south or the southwest. And, you know, people get into that in political general debate. But actually what the parties will be looking at are these micro areas, street by street. That ward that Georgia talked about, Darley in Derby, which makes up one ward in a particularly important marginal. And these are the kinds of clues that we will be looking for. Just one other brief point to make. When we were talking before about Sunderland, yes, Labour share, that is not the kind of thing where you look at that and think persuasively. You can sit here, David Lammy, tonight and say that means you're going to be Foreign Secretary this early in the night. That would be ridiculous to say anyway. But a bit of context of this. If we look back, yes, small swing Labour to Tory in Sunderland, despite the Labour hold. If you compare it to the referendum, the Tories are still looking at being 8% stronger than they were before Brexit. And this is still, we're in that era. Things have changed so much. So as we all have been talking about really historic swings backwards and forwards, this is still the sort of filling out of UK politics post-Brexit. We are in a new landscape, and that comparison in terms of Sunderland, which was so iconic, wasn't it, during the Brexit referendum results night, it's just something worth bearing in mind.
We'll see again, of course, when we get results in from
Other
more Remain areas,
Remain areas,
and Remain areas where we can make a comparison as well. Indeed. We're going to pause to go